Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This is my second time recording this because my sister interrupted me. Yeah, today we'll be talking about Godzilla, the King of the Monsters. First created in 1954, Godzilla became him a movie icon and brand from Toho and a couple other studios that were handed down to make Godzilla movies from Toho, like Legendary. Yeah. Godzilla was for sorry. Yeah. His Japanese name that is Godzilla, which is the combination of the two Japanese words for gorilla and will. Godzilla. And Godzilla is originally was, of course, in the movie represent of pretty much a living nuclear bomb and such. And of course, it was more animalistic and very highly dangerous since he gave off high levels of radiation. And of course, he was killed in the movie by the Oxygen Destroyer, here by Dr. Zerozawa. Sorry if I'm butchering any names here. Yeah. In that movie, his first ever movie, was supposed to be a one-off film. The reason why he pretty much died at the very end. But he came back a year later to sort of fight with one of technically a new fan, and made kaiju. Not fan made, but fan. Like a kaiju called Anguirus, which is an English or are supposed to be based off of one. And a year after that, in 1956, Rodan came out, which of course it's just to the giant lava chicken, pretty much. It's Rodan. And yes, Rodan has always been associated with lava and fire, because literally in his first movie, him and his mate pretty much, got killed by a volcano. And of course, a few years later, in 1961, we got introduced to Mothra, which, of course, from the name, which is a giant fluffy moth. That is pretty much a much more nicer counterpart to Godzilla. And of course, after around this movie, Godzilla became more friendly, per se, and more family friendly. And it sort of became that, classic 60s and 70s good guy hero thing. And of course, the Showa era was considered the more goofy era compared to his two debut movies, technically, Godzilla and Godzilla Returns in 54 and 55. He of course, this was a similar, the same decade where Gamera arose, a good 11 years after the first Godzilla film. Of course, we got introduced to a whole new cast of kaiju, per se, to add on to the already existing one, which is King Caesar, Gigan, and Mechagodzilla, Hedorah. Sorry. Yeah, and also, I do not remember much. Jet Jaguar, her King Ghidorah, aka Monster Zero, and did I read Gaian if I didn't say him already, and Megalon and Hera if I didn't already say him. And if I repeat one of them, I'm sorry. Yeah, and of course, Godzilla had started off as with not started off, but also had a son in this, which also will carry out through the next 2 eras of Godzilla made from Toho, which is Manila / Godzilla Jr. or Baby, considered the first one and where the first movie where his baby was introduced in the Heisei era, which I possibly picked up from subtitles. So Godzilla for a good time and was a more heroic figure besides the destructive, animalistic kaiju he once was in his first 2 movies. He was, of course, more human than, a giant atomic lizard bomb thing. Which I appreciate. Like, the movies are sort of like that type of fun where you can, like, sort of sit and relax and laugh at and such. And of course, his show era ended in 1974, or with the kaiju fight of, I forgot the monster's name, but it's this like giant red fish dinosaur thing. And of course, Godzilla pretty much had to fight both Mechagodzilla and this giant red fish thing. And it ended, and that was like the last movie of the show era in 1974. And a decade later, in 1984, our Godzilla returns. The return of Godzilla, which was heavily edited for American audiences and released in 1985 to American audiences. I was planning to see the movie like a few weeks ago, but couldn't find it on any streaming services. All I can tell you about it is Godzilla went back to his roots of being a more destructive monster, like he once was in his first couple of movies. And that movie kickstarted his Heisei era, which ended in 1995, which was the same year where Gamera's Heisei era started. And of course, in this era, there was a possible movie where Godzilla and Mothra, had a fight. Gamera versus Mothra. Not Gamera. I'm sorry, I'm getting names mixed up here. Godzilla versus Mothra, which was that title was kept secret for a while, called Godzilla versus the Thing. In this movie was were introduced Batra, which is the more darker and more evil version of Mothra. I have no set time date for this movie since I do not remember what year it was, but I specifically remember it was that movie. It was somewhere in the Heisei era, some point possibly in the 80s part of the Heisei era. In 1989, in which was Godzilla was the movie called Godzilla versus Biollante, which is a creation of this one scientist was combining a plant, his dead daughter's cells, and Godzilla's cells into a plant, in the same plant. And that thing slowly grew over time into Biollante, which first started off with this giant hulking thing with like a rose head. And of course, the rose head became a more of an, say, an alligator type snout. You know, and and Godzilla and her broke out into a fight, and Godzilla was able to somewhat kill her, releasing the girl's soul, pretty much. And yeah, and around 1990 to like 1992, around that time, and like Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla was released. Yes, which is of course Godzilla finding a copy of himself, but with a bit more red, and has giant crystals on his shoulders and back. Like and he's like made with some of Biolante's cells in a black hole, I think. And so, since Biolante had Godzilla's cells also transferred into the hole, since, you know, the whole cell thing. And Space Godzilla came down and freaking trapped Baby Godzilla, which was also like another Godzilla placed somewhere else in the Heisei timeline, and I do not remember the date where it was released, so I cannot place the movie with a certain date. And of course Godzilla was able to kill him, or end him pretty much, with the help of a version of Mechagodzilla. Like I know it's like his actual name isn't Mechagodzilla, but his name starts with a K, but I do not remember the full name. I'm sorry. Yeah, with K and Godzilla, they pretty much defeated Space Godzilla. And in 1995, Godzilla vs. Destroyer happened. And of course, him and Destroyer fought, which Destroyer is pretty much the auction destroyer from the first Godzilla film, like around 41 years ago. And he sort of grew, over time, in different organisms, and sort of combined himself, and was able to gather DNA samples pretty much from other kaiju, and adapted to have a certain trait of that said kaiju. Like if he got some of Rodan cells per se, or DNA, he was able to, say, get wings like Rodan. He was in this movie, Godzilla was thermal pretty much. He was like burning up and melting in the inside. And of course, his son, being much older, around a teenager at this point, he decided to go and help his father by trying to fight Destroyer, and that ended up where Godzilla Jr. almost died, pretty much. And I said almost because when Godzilla found him, and Destroyer did the last battle, Godzilla melted after defeating Destroy, and Godzilla Jr. sucked up his dad's energy and sort of became the next Godzilla. End of his Heisei series. In 1998, American studio released their Godzilla movie because in 1990, Toho gave them the rights to make a Godzilla movie. And I swear this movie had some real hype during the lead up. And of course, I wasn't alive during the movie because it was, it was happening, like it was released a good 9 years before I was even thought of, and took my first breath on the planet. But I hadn't had my parents tell me about it because, they're alive during it. And, because, they told me there was this, the Taco Bell mascot of or used to be mascot of this little chihuahua, doing this whole skit where this Godzilla and such with 3 tacos and trying to capture him in a box, and ended up him saying, "Looks like I need a bigger box." Yeah, I was very, very stupid yet cheesy at the same time, and I find that funny a little bit. And of course, a lot of people didn't like it because, the design of Godzilla wasn't very Godzilla. But besides, being this giant threat per se, but like a nuclear force per se. Hey, Godzilla was this giant lizard or iguana thing that can run very fast and only can walk on 2 legs and can swim. And I personally liked the movie when I was younger. It's possibly me and my cheesy humor, or me liking cheesy humor. Yeah, and also that Godzilla happened to be a female, I'm guessing, and reproduced eggs asexually. And I think only one baby survived by the end of the movie, though. And this Godzilla also died on a bridge with a bunch of bombs. And such. And we get into what I like to call the middle era, since I cannot pronounce the full thing, which started around I think 1999 into 2004. Or I don't remember much. There was a Resist Godzilla in 2002, and Godzilla Final Wars, since I pretty much watched those 2 movies as last year recently. When I watched the 2 movies, I personally liked Final Wars more, because at least it had some humor with the kaiju fighting and such. There was some good comedic timing with the whole kaiju battles and such, and otherwise the rest of the movie pretty boring. I honestly don't remember much from the 2002 Godzilla because I was that bored and was looking at my phone for the most of the time. I do remember that King Ghidorah, Mothra, and another kaiju showed up. Otherwise, I do not remember much, and I do not remember much from these 5 years of Godzilla. To be honest, since of course it's been a while since I've seen Godzilla film. It was from 2004 and back. And of course, Godzilla took a decade-long break, and Legendary got the rights for Godzilla, to have us Americans redeem ourselves also a little bit. Like a good 16 years later, after Toho possibly he disapproved of Godzilla 1998 with a good amount of backlash from fans. And Legendary made Godzilla more animalistic and more badass than he was in the last 16 years, pretty much. Not last 16 years, but in a good decade. And this Godzilla pretty much fought with in the war of of the legendary Godzilla. Fought these things called mutiles, which is pretty much an acronym. And pretty much and the smaller one is the male with the wings that can fly, and the bigger one is the female, and she pretty much laid eggs. And I pretty much enjoyed every single kaiju bit in this film. It sort of gave me a great relief from the boring humans. Like the humans were so boring, where I just was almost ready to turn off the movie every time they were on screen. And of course, there was Kong Skull Island in 2017. And in 2019, Godzilla in 2019, King of the Monsters came out, where we of course finally met up with a good few Godzilla originals with Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, and of course a few new kaiju that Legendary introduced, with Skilla, Behemoth, and Mufusula. And of course, only having at least max 3 minutes on screen, that hasn't stopped them being fan favorites. And of course, this movie had good feel boring humans in it, which I mean almost every single damn human. And in the kaiju, or some of the best parts in the movie seeing how every kaiju has original personalities. Like, of course, Godzilla is is absolutely brutal in this movie of trying to kill King Ghidorah. King Ghidorah still has that smirky attitude from him, where he wants destroy the planet, and Mothra is still technically the mother of life, if pretty much on Earth. And Rodan is of course still cocky as ever, and everybody else, of course, possibly has their own individual personalities. Like, the only human that I technically remembered from the film was Madison, the girl, and such. And of course, the recent Godzilla movie, as of late, in 2021, Godzilla vs. Kong, which they pretty much put, in my opinion, a giant iguana against a giant version of Curious George. I am not a really big fan of Kong, but I still acknowledge him in such. And I still appreciate Kong being one of the first ever kaiju, even before Godzilla was even thought of. And I still do acknowledge him and still enjoy him. He's not really up on my top 5 of favorite kaiju per se. He's somewhere in my top 10, if not even top 15, of favorite kaiju. And of course, this is a movie of Kong and Godzilla pretty much fighting. But this was actually a movie of Godzilla trying to fight Mechagodzilla. Of course, there's some humans didn't know that and decided Godzilla was attacking cities out of nowhere. So they got Kong and just decided to have them fight. And they realized, oh, Godzilla's trying to fight this one thing or try to stop it beforehand. So, yeah, Kong and Godzilla pretty much fought him, Mechagodzilla. And after that, they sort of became neutral of each other and such. And also, I forgot to mention Shin Godzilla in 2016. I did really forget him, but I decided to sort of get through the legendary kaiju first, then have Shin Godzilla from 2016. Godzilla, not 15, 16. I mean, I am sorry. Shin and Godzilla is where Toe just went full out on this Godzilla. Him up being made like a lizard, mutated by some like nuclear waste or whatever, where it became this like creature, like animalistic behaviors and such, and his like baby form pretty much when he started crawling on land for the first time, and his little gills that were hanging off were bleeding. And by the end of the movie, where Shin Godzilla is, of course, more like Godzilla. And he was pretty much stoned to death. If you want to say it, he was like injected with some stuff when he cooled down enough, when he got turned into stone. And there was this like zoom up shot of his tail where these tiny humanoid looking things are trying to crawl out of it, because out through the movie it was this kaiju trying to evolve and survive. Like, you could like pretty much understand the human side and the kaiju side is why they were doing what they're doing and such. And if I skipped over every single Godzilla anime out there, it's because I do not personally watch anime. Like, the only anime that I have ever watched was Godzilla Earth, and of course it was my first introduction to anime. So I sort of like no. Well, I do not hold anything against the anime community. I just had developed no taste for anime. So, yeah. If that's possibly the reason why I skipped over like every single Godzilla anime. But I have seen some clips of Godzilla Singular Point, and it looks pretty good. And they brought Jaguar back in the anime, and it seems like Tail still hates Rodan, because the rodent species in the anime seems to be, dying off. And I'm really starting to think that Tail somewhat, doesn't hate the rodent, doesn't hate Rodan, but sort of like Rodan is there to go reason for some weird stuff happening or whatever. So see y'all guys soon, and hope you enjoyed this longer video per se. Of course, it's much more longer than my Gamera video that I did, because Godzilla has way more mini movies than Gamera. And yeah, if you guys want me at some point in the future or to do any other character, I'm willing to do it. Do a deep dive of research of them and do a video especially based on them. So if you want any other kaiju like King Caesar, King Ghidorah, Hydra, Biollante, whoever, or even a much more obscure kaiju that you really want to see, just give me the name of the kaiju, and I'll try to research them, and get as much information as possibly can, and so I can do a video. This is possibly one way for me to able to connect with you guys. So have a fun day / night. Like and subscribe if you want to. See you all guys later.